Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with Tim Page, CEO at DecisionLink. We have a great conversation around being ready to volunteer for anything, solving for customer value, and realizing the calling of sales. We worked together back in 2016, 2017, but we're going to go into your career. We want to dig deep into that and learn about the human behind all the success that you've had. But let's start with what you're doing now. So CEO at DecisionLink, tell us a little bit about the company, the market, what you're solving for, what took you there. Share away.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been DecisionLink 7 weeks. And I've learned a lot since I've been here, but we're a new category, right? We're solving for customer value management. There's a value piece of what every B2B vendor is trying to prove to their customers, right? And we look at ourselves as you've got kind of a CRM category, which there's CRM players like a Salesforce that's been in for years that kind of keeps record of how things are going. And then there's a number of SaaS players also that kind of keep track of the success piece, but nobody's actually risen above that to be able to solve for what value do we show our customers? How do we track that back to them? So a value realization piece of that, so that they know why they're buying, they can communicate that upwards, et cetera. And frankly, I didn't know it could be solved with technology.
Right.
So that's what we solve for. Just came out with a new platform about a month ago. That's been 3 years in the works. And yeah, we've had great success. We've got, a number, we're signing about 15 to 20 enterprise customers a quarter right now.
Wow. Now what attracted you? Because obviously with your tenure and experience, you could go anywhere. So what attracted you specifically to DecisionLink?
Hey, listen, I've been in IT forever, right? So I've sold to IT, been in IT, start off my career in the application world. So, we can go through that at some point, but,
sure.
This was a phone call and I was headed towards a much different multi-billion-dollar play to do something different. And I got a call going, hey, these guys have developed this customer value management platform that does X and shows customers Y. And I'm like, there's no way. As I've done this through hiring expensive value engineers, which you still need, right? And business people like McKinsey and big consultants to do things. I didn't know, because so much of it is analytical, that mathematically a company could actually solve for across different personas, different industries could solve for this in a platform. So I came down and met with these guys in Atlanta, and 2.5 months later, I took over, and yeah, I'm pretty fired up for where I think we're gonna be in the next couple of years.
Amazing. Love it. Now, I'm sure we'll come back to DecisionLink during the course of the conversation, but a lot of people listening today will be thinking, okay, wow, I want to one day do something like what Tim is doing. So I want to dig into your career a little bit, and let's go way back. Now, if I've got my facts right, you started in sales, is that right?
No, Dan.
Here we go. What do you got?
I don't often admit this.
Go on.
That's how everybody thinks of me. I was an engineer. I was a software engineer out of college.
Wow. Okay.
With a little bit of a personality, but yeah, I kind of lucked in a really good group of people for, before ERP was out, into a small company that was building an ERP. And yeah, basically ended up helping bring that to market. It got bought out by a really big company, not another vendor. And that's where I learned, as the product was coming to fruition, I ended up running the product. They put me in front of customers all over the world. And that's where I learned I could actually communicate, because I knew I could talk accounts payable, receivable, equipment calibration on a plant floor through. And once I understood that, because I didn't grow up on the side of the tracks, anybody had a professional career, I was like, oh, you can make a lot of money in sales. And one thing led to another. And yeah, I ended up working for a vendor I worked for Informix Software as an SE. So I went from an engineer to an SE, and then I did some operational roles, and then ended up at EMC when they were about 1,000 people, and did a number of things there to grow things. And yeah, I've always said, give me something new or broken. But yeah, major trajectory change when I realized if you can communicate and actually have a little bit of a brain, I'm not a good engineer. you can actually use those skills to explain to people a value prop in what you do.
Amazing. So engineer, SC, sales. I know you from your chief operating officer role and all the success you had there, into CEO, acquired Datrium, acquired by VMware, now CEO at DecisionLink. So I don't even know where to start to break that down, but as people start listening to this, what are some of the key learnings that you've had that maybe people who are listening to this today, who ultimately aspire to become a CEO one day, what are some of those key learnings that you've had in that period of time?
I tell you, and I just thought of this off the cuff.
Yeah.
Probably one of the people who've had the biggest impact on my career was, I grew up on the other side of the tracks, but I took care of these rich people's lake houses back in the day. And there was a guy by the name of Carlos Hidalgo, who was born, his dad worked for Fidel Castro, and he came to the States under a really suppressed type of thing. He became a really wealthy man. And one thing he told me, as I was working for him as a kid, this is a 15, 16-year-old kid, is do something new or broken till you're in your 40s. Don't think about money. Which I just told a number of our interns who have come from different universities the same thing, because it's hard, right? When you grow up without anything and thinking, yeah, I'm not working for money. And throughout my career, there's a couple pivotal points where I had big offers to go run something, and I'd call Carlos, he'd be like, why are you doing it? He's like, don't, go someplace different. So in the form of that, I embraced it and took it to heart. And what I tell people all the time, including my kids, is just keep doing something, like be the one to put your hand up and say, I'll go do it. Even if it means, at one point in my career, it was dropping like 3,000 people working for me down to be an individual contributor to build back up again. If you do that, by the time you're in your 40s, you've got a plethora of things you've done.
Yeah.
So in my case, it was engineering and different levels of operations and sales all over the world, and different business units, and running different industry groups, and OEM sales, and and channel sales, and I'd done so much because I didn't mind saying, just give me something new, and I didn't think about the money aspect of it. And by the time you get into your 40s, you start going, oh, I really have had a wealth of experience. So I've been lucky to have good people in my life and good mentors that I didn't even purposefully pick, that poured into me and told me to just keep doing things that were that seemed like they were a new endeavor.
So I'm hearing, put your hand up, offer yourself up for any opportunity that can come your way, so you can experience it and learn from it. And as the CEO, so second time CEO now, you look at all of that experience. You've done a lot of the roles, right, that you're ultimately responsible for. So there's you've got a good understanding. Are there any roles that that you haven't done, that in the role of the CEO, you're now learning a lot about yourself?
Yeah, I have never done a hardcore marketing role. I think I've always been around it. Like if you're, and I've loved some of the stuff you guys post, if you're a good sales leader, you embrace marketing, you learn a lot through it. But probably one of my biggest learnings the last couple of years, especially different stages, right? I'm back to the startup stage, and I've done bigger jobs, but demand gen's everything. And demand gen in this industry and in this time is really different than it was 10 years ago. So yeah, I've learned quite a bit with those aspects. And, hey, I always learn, you hire people that are better than you and you keep learning. It's never an ending thing. So I can't claim I'm great at anything, but I'm good at asking questions and hiring good people. But marketing's probably been the biggest, the different elements of real marketing that was probably the biggest learning thing I had to do recently.
I remember you saying that to me when we worked together as well. And it was always like, hire people who you will learn from to make yourself better. And that just always stuck with me. You mentioned always putting yourself out there and taking that chance and taking on new opportunities. But do you look back at your career and think maybe there's one or two moments or decisions you made, those pivotal moments in your career that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, great question. I think there was a couple. One was when I was sitting in Jake Heads Island in Hawaii in a nuclear plant and realized I could communicate as an engineer. And I started thinking, man, I should get into sales because we were closing a multi-million-dollar system back then. That was pivotal. And ever since that day, I started getting used for that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to change the trajectory of my career. And I went to a vendor, right? My first vendor I ever went to was pivotal. I think another pivotal moment was, going to EMC when they were just a few thousand people and running hard. Yeah. And then another pivotal moment was, when they had this concept of creating this joint venture, which joint ventures are crazy sometimes. And I put my hand up and said, sure, I'll go do it with two big companies, Cisco and EMC. And we grew that to $3 billion in 7 years, right? And the first year and a half were horrible, right? So pivotal. You learn. I got more into the operating roles then. And then, I used to say I was a great number 2 guy because I like doing the hard work for somebody. And then finally I woke up one day and after a lot of advice from people, they said, you should be the number 1 guy. I put my hand up and, I don't know if I'm the one guy, but I'm not afraid to take on that position dealing with the board and financing and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But I probably had 3 or 4 pivotal. Pivotal number 1 would be when I realized I could sell and there was a world out there besides just putting my head into a computer and coding. That was super pivotal.
But that in itself is huge because that takes chops to jump out of, like, I'm not even going to say your comfort zone, just something you're good at, right? Yeah. To jump into something that is unproven, it's unknown. Do you recall it being a terrifying moment, or were you excited about it? Like, because people will be listening to this thinking, I'm in that situation now. Should I? So do you recall how you felt about it?
You know what? I do, totally. And I've had a couple of those moments in my career where you're just sitting there going, but I think I've embraced I like to be scared, and I've had support. Married 32 years, so I've had support from my wife, right? And I think a lot of that just helps, just going, I like it. I like new. And now, interesting. One of my kids asked me today, they go, when was the first job where you weren't scared going into it? And I go, you know what? Probably my last job. The first one that I actually felt, hey, it's scary. We've got to do a lot of big things really quick. Same with this job, but I'm confident in who to hire, what to ask, that kind of thing. But that took 30 years in the industry before you felt not comfortable for sure, but confident.
Yeah. Someone once told me if you don't get nervous, even before, like, we do training, I get nervous before every single session we do still, and I've done it for years. But that shows you're still passionate, right? Because you care. As soon as, but I think with jobs, it's slightly different because it comes with experience. You've got a wealth of it now and you know how to apply it, right? And I think that just comes with time. But you mentioned your wife. Let's talk about passion, right? So I don't know if that's the right segue, but let's go with it. When it comes to the things that drive you, right? There's the things that from a business perspective, and then there's the things outside of work, right? So give us a bit of a sense of what drives you on both fronts.
Yeah, interesting. So thinking through, there's a lot that drives me, but when it comes down to it, and I've actually done deep thinking about, I think as you go through progressions in life, you think, why am I here? What am I doing? What legacy do I want to leave behind? I've done a lot of things wrong. People drive me, right? If you have to think about it, like I was just off 6 months in between jobs and I'm like, my wife keeps saying, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to stop because I love people and I love seeing people succeed and I'm passionate about it. And it sounds cliche, but we're doing it here at DecisionLink. I care about diversity and inclusion and I've cared about it for years and typically I've run things that way. But we're purposefully doing it, right? We're going to different universities and hiring. So, and just to see people be successful, right? Yeah. Probably pull for the underdog since, if it wasn't for this guy Carlos in my life, I probably would have stayed where I was. And, I could have been, hey, I did a lot. I was chopping trees and working on farms and I could still be doing that if it wasn't for somebody going, hey, you have more ability, go put yourself through college and go get a degree and go do something. Yeah. So I think if I had to pick a passion, it literally is people. I love people. And I love the differences in people and the intellectual way people think. And I like seeing people, get out of life what they're trying to get out of life, if that makes any sense.
It definitely does. And you talk the talk, you walk the walk, because I saw on LinkedIn, literally before this session, someone in the team had posted something about leadership. and you'd commented on their post, and they're a more junior employee, but you live and breathe it. You see it in the feed, and I'm not just saying this, I've experienced that myself. What about outside of work? So when you do get any free time, when you're out there, what are the things that Mr. Tim Page does?
What am I passionate about outside of work? You know what? So I love working out. I may not look like a specimen, but I work out with a trainer 4 days a week. I love it. It gives you, it fills all that, you get all that energy out and stuff. And that's how I start my day when I'm home. Love working out, love boating, right? With my kids, boating as much as I can get out on the water. And then I picked up, I'll call it a hobby about 7 years ago. I was fortunate enough to walk into buying this little ranch, which is now turned into a little bigger thing. And yeah, I rustle cattle and ride horses, and I got a whole nother side of me people don't know, but I just love being outside, with people, with nature, doing things. And I'm pretty passionate about as much as I can be outdoors, I'm outdoors.
Love it. Now, the polar opposite of what you're passionate and get excited about, arguably, are those frustrations and that friction. So what are the things when it comes to business or personal, what are the things that really get you go? What gets that blood boiling?
Okay. Top of mind, I can't stand people that are out for themselves, which is probably why I migrate to small environments where people just have to like each other, get along and figure it out. Yeah, you said work-wise, I like people that want to own their job and do it, right? Not make excuses about why they can't do it or it's somebody else's fault. It's always that friction. I've seen you post things on sales and marketing, and I make sure those teams are all bonused and the same and, have to do it. Life's too short. We got to get along. And hey, I don't suffer fools and I don't like lazy, right? It's a good or bad thing with me. I want people to be, intellectually curious and want to succeed. And a great example, that was Jordan who posted that, by the way. I think she's great. We just had an intern come in, Eric Powell, came from Howard University as an intern. And I told him the other day, I think he's going to be a CEO, right? This kid didn't grow up with a whole lot, but you want to talk about bright, that's the passionate piece where I get. And so the opposite of that from a friction standpoint is if you don't have a work ethic, and you're not intellectually curious and you don't want to do something, that frustrates me. Yeah,
I hear you. And kudos again, the fact that you have those conversations. And I remember people having those conversations with me when I was very early on in my career, and those people were senior like yourself, and it sticks with you. And sometimes you just, as a newer employee, right, you need that and you latch onto that, and that keeps you going. So that's huge. Now, let's pivot a little bit to Empire. So you've, we worked together a little bit. You saw me put a lot of what we teach to companies into practice when we did work together. And, we've had lots of chats over the last 2 or 3 years. So what is it and you're excited for me, I know. So what is it about what we're doing that is getting you excited? Talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean this truthfully. I told this to you when you were first starting off. I was so psyched you were doing it. And the team, right? Right, Jordan, Rebecca, I love who you bring into this, and I love what you guys are doing. And I just got another update, and we're bringing you in where I'm at now because I think it's a big deal. By the way, I like the way, and I think a lot of it's from your background, at LinkedIn and other things you've done. I like the way you connect people on a personal level. At the end of the day, if you're trying to make somebody successful in their career, right, or their personal life, they're gonna want to do business with you, right? And the way you guys go about doing that, probably even more so with COVID and remote working and everything else, is even more important. But even without that, it's important, right? So I like where you've taken it. I've seen the fruits of it, and I've talked to other CEOs and CROs that have seen what you guys have done. I mean, it's a big deal, and I think you're actually. Even Dan, I guess thinking through kind of the question on this thing, I think you're actually changing people's lives that you won't know for years to come, right? Because, I've got 2 kids that have gone to the SDR role, one's in inside sales. And when you're dialing for dollars, 100 calls a day for somebody saying, hey, maybe you get 3 meetings out of this and maybe one of them ends up in something, that's a bad way to live.
Yeah.
But to slow down, to speed up, I think it's a big deal. I love what you're doing. I love how, successful you made people. And I think later, some of these young people coming out that had to go do those, SDR roles that they knew they had to suck up for a year and a half, it actually makes it fun. Yeah. Right? You're actually doing research on companies and people and seeing who they're connected to and soft touching them and looking at different social channels. And it's a human way of connecting. Yeah. So you just made that role be more human, and then the company success falls in the back end of that.
I love it. And you touched on COVID, right? So I launched this business 2 years before COVID. So we knew where the world was going. So however, this whole transformation of how salespeople go to market and all of that has been taking place over a period of time. Would you say that COVID just essentially fast-tracked everything that was going to happen anyway when it comes to sales and engaging with customers?
Interesting. So I'm a student. I always have been. So yeah. When Datrium was acquired, I didn't know when I was going back to work, and I figured it'd be after COVID was kind of over. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of reading and asking a lot of both investors, VC, PE companies. I contacted a lot of the basic people I know. I was like, hey, how's it going? What are you seeing, et cetera? I'll tell you how I've netted it out between talking to everybody. I don't think just COVID changed things. I think COVID, in my opinion, made people wake up and realize the world already had changed around them, mm-hmm. right? So the access to iPhones and Google, and there's no, especially B2B, there's no mm-hmm. business that hasn't already researched the heck out of you before they decided whether they want to talk to you or not.
Yeah.
So it's no longer you've got to get in front of somebody and go through, PowerPoint, or in the old days it was slide presentation, right? To convince somebody of what you give to them. They've done a lot of that, and there's tools mm-hmm. out that will show a lot of that. So if you don't think you've got to connect and show, which is why I'm at DecisionLink, right? The value mm-hmm. management piece of what customers can get, and then show them they got that. Mm-hmm. It's different. So the old school sales tactics of make 1 million calls, drill down on people till they're tired and want to see you, and then go sell them something, they're just over.
Yeah.
My opinion, and I could be off on some of this, I think COVID just kind of highlighted it.
Yeah.
And actually what it highlighted is also the need for the sellers you should have been or should be hiring are people that understand that and have adopted it. So it's really interesting as I'm kind of seeing the people that are adopting it and the people that I, don't think will.
Yeah, we see the same thing. It's that pivotal moment in people's careers where a lot of senior sales leaders have had that playbook that they've relied on for 15, 20 years and keep trying to force it internally, but so much has changed internally and externally that just isn't working anymore. And those people have that decision to make. Let's learn, like you say, become a student again and learn and pivot or not. And then the or not is a dangerous path, right? Yeah. Well, Tim,
I think I have 4 kids that are kind of in that millennial stage, right? I've got 4 kids between 21 and 28, and there 2 of them have got in this industry. The other 2 are graduating in the next year, and it's interesting because they keep me grounded too, right? With mm-hmm. you don't want to be that old dad.
Yeah, love it. Let's do a bit of a quick fire before we let you go. I've got a series of questions I'm keen to ask you. Some of them will be maybe one-word answers. Some of them, depending on how you answer them, I might want to dig a little deeper. So we'll see what happens. So let's jump in. You ready?
Yep, let's go.
Let's do it. Quick fire question number 1. Tim, who is your hero?
Easy, my wife. Raised 4 kids with me, traveling 7 million miles over the years until I graduated from high school. And they're all good kids. That had nothing to do with me. She's my hero.
Love it. Best sales kickoff you've ever been to, and why?
Ooh, top of my head. Caymans, when I was with VCE, why? Size was probably 30 people, good size, awesome venue, great people, intimate. And I still get people pinging me about it, about 3 or 4 of them, but that was the big one.
I think you answered this earlier, but morning lark or night owl? When do you do that working out?
Yes. That's my problem. My wife says, I never see him go to bed. I never see him get up. I've got issues. I am both. I like to go to bed late. I'm trying to get to bed before midnight now, but I'm up by 5:30 and in the gym by 6. So yeah, I'm kind of both ends of the spectrum on that one.
What was your bit random this one? What was your last Halloween costume?
It was a while ago, but I was a pirate, and I'll leave it at that.
I know you've done a ton of travel. You said it, 7 million miles, but what's your favorite city in the world?
Okay, I've been asked this a lot. City, country, etc. I literally don't have one. And I think because I've always embraced culture and I try to get off the beaten track, and I've been most countries in the world. But yeah, there's not a favorite place.
Okay. Where haven't you been that you would love to go to?
Okay, if I had to pick a place, and I've wanted to forever, there's 2 places I want to go I've never been: Egypt and Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
I've never been to either, and I'd love to go to both.
There you go.
For all kinds of reasons. But yeah, never been, but I've been probably most other major countries, and I love it. I love them all.
What brings you joy?
Family, nature, seeing people succeed. Yeah.
Love it. How many cups of coffee a day?
Okay. I have 2 to 4 big cups of coffee, all before 11 a.m. And I drink black coffee now. I used to drink all kinds of stuff in it, but I drink black coffee. 2 to 4 cups.
Favorite manager ever?
I can't pick one, and you're not going to like the answer. Except for one person I've worked for my entire career, I have been super lucky to pull out good from every person I've worked for. And not many people can say that. I can't pick one. I can, I never say, but I can probably pick one that I didn't appreciate, and that only lasted a short time. But yeah, I've been
and let's not mention the name.
No name. No name.
Looking back, what would you tell your younger self?
Relax. Right. So I think about it and I tell my kids this: just relax, because when you're 22, 23, you think you've got to go solve all this stuff. And heck, I've seen stuff Rebecca's posted and you've posted about, why did I work 16 hours a day? I'd say relax. I don't think I was ever motivated by money, but I was motivated, to be successful and to not have to want. And that worked into, a lot of hours away from home, a lot of trips. And when I wasn't on trips, I worked a lot of hours. So I just say relax and prioritize, and always have outside endeavors that, both from a charity perspective, as well as just stuff that makes you mentally deconnect. But I didn't learn that for years. But yeah, I tell every kid I meet coming out of college, just relax, right? Don't take everything so seriously.
Could not agree more. And I think on that, we will wrap. So Tim, I want to say thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us today. I really appreciate it.